right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego, a bit cold but sunny, but probably not cold in comparison to where Whitney Faires is in Indianapolis, Indiana. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yes, you are correct. It is not sunny and warm.
And Whitney is an internationally recognized leadership advisor, keynote speaker, and executive coach with over 20 years of corporate experience. A former executive, she built a 2 billion international leasing business, led global leadership programs for a Fortune 500 company, and coached rising professionals into senior roles. And today, as the founder of Whitney Faires Advisory and Speaking, you help transform managers into magnetic leaders who inspire results, engagement, and culture from the inside out. What we're going to talk about today is the hidden drivers of sales excellence. So, Whitney, let's flip it on the other side for a second. What are some of the mistakes you see that people still keep making around sales that actually has the opposite effect and of developing sales excellence? What do you see the mistakes people continue to make?
Sure. I would highlight a couple for us to brainstorm here. The first is that it's very tempting to rely too heavily on transactional selling.
Mhm.
Our products, benefits, how we differentiate from competitors. And we think we're going to influence by helping them understand our products and services. And I think we have to really flip the script and strive for strategic connection. And when we connect with our customers, which goes far beyond just building rapport or
Mhm.
relationship selling, because I'm not big proponents of those as the means to drive our
Right.
goals. We then have such a deep understanding that the way in which we interact with them, the way we are presenting our products and our solutions, it hits differently. And they see that real-time value of what you're bringing to them as a benefit
Mhm.
to their organizations. I think that's one. I think the other one is we run our sales processes thinking that if we do the work, the deals will come.
Right, right.
If it were that easy, salespeople wouldn't get paid such good money and be such drivers, right? And we could hire
Mhm.
somebody, anybody to just run the process.
Yeah.
And in the opportunity is how do we become a catalyst for behavior change?
Mhm.
And by doing that, we are then able to take the most vulnerable parts of our deals, which is the agreement, which is the space between agreement and action. And we have multiple points of that during each one of our deals and actually create change. That's a win-win for the salesperson, the company, and the customer.
Yeah, no, and absolutely, and I would agree. And yeah, and on your second one, yeah, sometimes we use activity as a, if you like, as a comfort blanket when things aren't going well. You know, we just like go into activity mode, and that kind of makes you feel good, even though it doesn't actually result in anything in the long run. Usually, tell me a little bit about how do you develop strategic. First of all, what is strategic connection, and then how do you develop it?
Yeah, the strategic connection is ability to really deeply understand your customer and the needs that they have, the pain points that they have, and then can connect how your products and solutions align to the bigger picture. Because it's not just solving one problem. That's not good enough. There's a lot
Mhm.
of products that solve one problem. It's about understanding their entire ecosystem and being able to really position the value that your products and services bring to the bigger picture of the customer. And when you do that, it helps to deepen trust with your customers.
Mhm.
The value alignment falls into place, and you are now seen as someone that is a partner in the process instead of a salesperson.
Mhm.
And people don't like to be sold. I
Right.
mean, there are people that have very visceral reactions when they feel like they're being sold, and
Mhm.
and I think the gap is not necessarily the tactics. It's because they realize someone is pushing something without understanding the customer.
Yeah, and I think there's a huge trust deficit today. I think people are so much more kind of suspicious, if you like, and their antennas are up. I mean, for a lot of different reasons. So establishing trust is so critical, but that's not such an easy thing to do, especially if a lot of your sales is done virtually and stuff. It's hard. You have to really focus and be intentional about building that trust.
Yeah, and I think we often get influence wrong, and I alluded to this a little bit, but
Mhm.
we often think influencing is helping to communicate in a way that conveys what we want. That's compelling. And
Mm.
influence is the opposite. It's a very deep understanding of who you're working with, communicating with, selling to, so that there is the trust to really hear the message, to open up to the pain points, and to have real conversations. And when you can start building that trust and having real conversations, that's where change happens.
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. And then to know how, and once you get that opportunity, because it's not that easy to get the opportunity to have those kind of conversations, you got to work hard to get them. Once you get them, what are some of the things that you should be looking to do in order for a prospect to think, okay, this is somebody who I can actually have a conversation with that maybe has some valuable insights for me, and it's a worthwhile investment of my time.
Well, I think it starts with, you got to do your homework, right?
Mhm.
Every interaction has to bring value. Even from the start, you have to know where you can bring value in each conversation, even if it's in small doses. And
Right.
that's when people say, okay, I'll take that next meeting. It's then about asking the right questions. And we talk about discovery, but we all know that discovery can be check the box. We
Yep.
go in with a plan. We have our whole plan. We know our process that works, and we're just kind of nailing down our list of questions. And I don't think that's because we don't care about our customers. I actually think we do care. I think
Mhm.
it's hard for us to trust ourselves, to be present in the moment. And when we ask question number one and there's really good insights there, staying there. Or
Mm.
our customer answers question one, and instead of pivoting to question two, they take, the customer takes the discussion a different direction. And we just kind of hear it and then go to our next item. We have to
Yeah.
really be present. And when it becomes a genuine conversation focused on the customer's agenda, it makes it easier to get those interactions. And the thing that's so easy that we so often don't do, and this is good intent, but we move
Mhm.
very fast.
Yes.
And when we move fast, we miss doing follow through with quality. So when we say, "Hey, we'll get you that later today," and it's not there for 2 days,
Mhm.
there are people that really take that to heart. If I can't count on you when you're selling me, what can I count on when I've officially bought?
Yeah.
And so it comes down, honestly, I say the same about sales and about leadership. It's fundamentals, thoughtfully, intentionally executed consistently. And when you do that, some of these easy misses, they become wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, exactly. What you say about consistency, I think is so incredibly important because as you said is and I think this is something that a lot of B2B salespeople particularly overlook sometimes is the fact that there's an emotional component involved in the purchasing, right? The buyer, whether it's a buying committee, there's always at least one or two people who are ultimately responsible for whatever it is you're selling, right? Buying it. And that can be, if it goes well, that can be career enhancing for them. If it doesn't go well, it can be, you maybe have the opposite effect on them. And sometimes we don't take that into account that they have a lot personally riding on this as well. And so to your point, if we don't understand that, and if we don't realize that, then we can blow past things that may come back to bite us.
Yeah, and I think, I always say that we oftentimes have good intentions. The
Mhm.
effort is there, but it's exactly what you're saying. These small misses with such few touch points on our customers very early on, without that preparation and without the self
Mhm.
discipline to stick with where the customer's going, we can really, create that trust deficit,
Mm.
as you said, by just very small interactions. And I think the thing is that so often what we're competing against is apathy.
Yes.
uh, Even when you have actual competitors, it doesn't matter if you're the top provider in your
Mhm.
industry or you're middle of the pack. You still are competing against the difficulty of
Yep.
change. What do I need it? Can I live without it? Could I put these buttons someplace else? Is now the right time? And and that's why the interactions with our customers, those that I firmly believe treat it as uh, an opportunity to really deeply understand the customer and stick with where they're going. That's where it reveals the greatest information that then you can use to position your products. But without
No,
that, it's also.
It is, and that goes back to what you were saying about if you're superficial in your questioning, if you don't listen, if you don't explore. Another big mistake sometimes is made is when you start to have that conversation, and maybe the prospect mentions something, and you think, "Wow, great, that's something I can solve." So you immediately dive in on it instead of exploring further, because it may be something that your product or service can solve, but it may not be something that they care that much about. So rather than diving in on top of it and sort of going into solution mode, it's having that extra level of conversation. So maybe you can find that there's actually other drivers or other issues that are far more important than the first one the prospect mentions.
Yeah, it's so easy if you just ask, well, where does that rank in your
Hmm.
order of priorities, or are there other pain points that are above that? Again, it's you just can't take the bait so quick. You've
Hmm.
got to treat it as I. There's still a lot of things I don't know, and in the power is in discovering those. And again, it's also what helps your customers feel that you're really in it to understand them. And I think that's when the pivot point happens in a lot of transactions, when the customers believe that you're in it for more than the deal, for more than that sale, they
Hmm.
start to open up a bit more
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's a different dynamic, and to get there, you have to have that trust, you have to show up consistently, you have to bring value, but it's more discipline and preparedness than it is hard to do.
Yeah, and I just want to underline what you just said there when discipline and preparedness, because that is something I think we live in a shortcut culture today, and that is one of the things I always say to people when somebody's in a sales slump. My first question is, go back and look at what you were doing when you were successful, and tell me, is there anything you stopped doing? Are you doing everything that you used to do? And I guarantee you, most of the time, you'll see they've started to skip things, maybe skimp on preparation because, well, I'm so experienced. I know these things. I don't really have to prepare that much. I can jump in. But these are the things that undo you. And as you said, it's the consistency. It's doing the hard work. And the best salespeople I've ever known are the ones who preparation is non-negotiable.
Yeah, yeah, they balance quality and quantity. You could
Hmm.
have 20 phenomenal calls a day, or 20 average calls a day, average to good, or you could have 12 exceptional ones. And I'm a big believer that the 12 exceptional will win. And on your along your thought that you just shared, I totally agree. You have to look back and say, what did I stop doing?
Hmm.
At the same time, you also have to ask the opposite question. This is my experience,
Yeah.
where have I evolved enough to what's going on with my customers in the market? Because because the growth, I find that you have these people that sit at the top of the leaderboard in their organizations for driving results and for sales. And eventually those people suddenly drop off. And sometimes we've had this recipe for success that has taken us really far. And so there's a
Hmm.
fear of evolving. But we start to notice things with our customers. We start to see industry standards change. And it's easy to say, I'm just going to stay the course, close my eyes, keep doing what I'm doing until it's this big gap that takes you a year
Hmm.
or two to climb out of. So it's this balance of, am I sticking to the things that I know work? Am I also eyes wide open to some things I need to try to evolve in and try differently? But you can't go all in. You got to dip your toe in the water, give it a try for a little bit, and then decide if it's part of your mainstay process.
No, absolutely, and I mean, I think that was something that I think COVID and remote selling, it was quite a challenge for some salespeople because if you're used to your mode is like I get in the door physically and then I dominate, and then I fill the room and I get everybody all this, and I'm fantastic at that. Now I have to do that virtually. That's a challenge. So I mean, we're constantly, and these are constant challenges and changes that are affecting. So we have to be nimble. We have to start looking at different ways of doing things. And as you said, looking at maybe there are things you excelled at that maybe aren't as important anymore.
Yeah, and something else that comes to mind that we're talking about is you have to understand your customer journey. We
Hmm.
talk about how these are big decisions for some of our customers. I remember back when I was selling multi-million dollar surgical robots, there were times where a CEO would look me in the eye and say, "You realize if this fails, I will lose my job."
Yeah, yeah.
That's the magnitude. And yes, do I have the $2 million? Sure, but that $2 million I'm investing in your product. I took away from other life-saving products.
Mhm.
And so I'm the one that's accountable. And I think for us to understand the impact of the changes, the difficulty for our customers in making the change, it's easy to look at our products that we're so entrenched in and
Yep.
say, there's a 15% difference. Just swap this for that. It's just not that easy for the customers or for the customers that they serve, right?
Mhm.
So having that empathy and really being realistic, I believe it helps you speak and interact in a way that reflects your understanding and therefore your credibility.
No, no, absolutely. And part of that, comes from the fact, as you said, is you got to make sure it's the right decision, and they're making the right decision, and you've got all everything squared away there. One of the other things that's really interesting nowadays is the trust factor that we talked about, but it's because, let's face it, like we've got AI, we've got all these other things creeping in now, and some people are, trying to use like AI SDR, outreach and stuff and all that kind of, which is, I think, is not right. But and it's not going to work, when you're mimicking humans and stuff. Not right. We're not there yet. But it is a time now where salespeople need to adapt to the changes that are coming and the changes in AI, and which again raises the whole trust factor again, because people don't know what's real and what's not.
Oh, yeah, and I think you can see when sales pitches, emails are
Mhm.
written with AI a mile away, and AI is a phenomenal tool. I use it all the
Mhm.
time,
Yeah, absolutely.
but you have to use it as a piece of what you're doing, not as the easy button.
Yes.
And again, it's like anyone can AI a summary of your product or a head-to-head comparison of you versus
Yeah.
someone else. But the personal touch point, especially in a culture today that is craving connection,
Hmm.
coming out of the pandemic, with how technology sits between us and everything. If your communications lack that connection, lack the in person feel, then I think it makes it harder to get in the door.
No, absolutely, absolutely, it does. And just avoiding some, I mean, things you see recently. It's like it's easy to use AI personalization tools and stuff, and but if I get an email that says, "Oh, hey John, I see you live in Carlsbad. Have you ever been to blah 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 place?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it shut down 2 years ago. Thanks." But anyway,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean, like that kind of stuff that's so obvious, and it has the opposite effect because it's so obvious that it's not that it's done by it's done by technology, and it's not really personalizing.
Yeah, use AI to refine things. Use AI to do deep research, understand your customer and all of their competitors, understand the dynamics of the industry. That's where I think it thrives. I mean, there's a
Mhm.
lot of places, so that we could be debated on this, I'm
Yeah.
sure, for hours. But I think the point that we're both aligned on is that AI in place of really intentional strategic messaging is going to fall flat. You,
Yeah.
you run the risk that it works against you more than it works for you. So just take the time. The quality of your activities will pay you back in dividends.
Yeah, yeah, and use AI to make you better. Don't use AI
Right.
to as a shortcut or whatever. Use it to make yourself better, to be more informed. I mean, there's so many things you can do with it that when you actually get a chance to talk to your prospect, you can be so much better prepared. You can be so much better informed. But just like we said with preparation, that means taking a little time to do the work and to use the AI properly. Don't just do this like last minute quick thing where you think you can use it to skimp on your prep.
Yeah. Have it create all your slides for you.
Exactly, exactly. So, what do you see? What do you see going forward, Whitney? The salespeople who are going to succeed in the next like 2, 3, 5 years? What are they going to do that maybe other salespeople aren't doing?
A couple things, I'll go back to their ability to create meaningful customers, driving
Hmm.
behavior change. And what that means is meaningful urgency is not, hey, we have 3 weeks left in the year and this price is going to go away. I'm not saying I've never
Hmm.
used that because I absolutely
Sure.
have. Okay.
Well, yeah,
But
everyone has.
typically doesn't work because you give them a better deal in March because that deal is still hanging out there. There's a gap.
Mhm.
So it's understand again, when you go back to you have a deep understanding of your customer and their business and the opportunity cost of not moving, then
Mhm.
the urgency that you create is tied to that. And it's real. It's real.
Yeah,
If I say to a customer, hey, if you don't implement this, you've shared that for every month that goes by, it's a 100K hit to your bottom line. How long are we going to wait?
yeah.
That's different than saying you're gonna miss out on a 100K price difference if you do it January 1 versus December 31st. And so the strategic connection is tied to creating meaningful urgency because without the connection, you don't understand their business deep enough.
Mm,
You don't understand the customer, the buyer themselves, the decision maker deep enough to create urgency that matters. And urgency that matters is real, right? It's
mm.
founded in something that's not just what we think or what we're or scare tactics, but it's something that matters to them. I think it's one really critical piece. The other one is having happy customers.
Yeah,
Uh, not all of us have recurring revenue coming out of our sales, but we definitely have a brand. We definitely have these people that we sell to that are part of networks. I mean, the professional communities are pretty tight these days.
mhm.
So when all those CEOs are sitting in a meeting talking about the software that they acquired, what are they going to say about you? What are they going to say about your products? And I think that really, the wake you leave in the sales process will determine kind of those deals that fall out of the sky. The person
Yeah.
that calls you and says, "Hey, John said that you were phenomenal to work with. Your product transformed this XYZ, and I at least want to take a meeting with you."
Yeah. No, and absolutely, absolutely. And just as you said, is like having that consistent experience, regardless of whether it's really early, your first interaction with the company, whether it's a sales process, whether it's afterwards. You're not going to have happy customers unless that experience is consistently good. It doesn't have like, oh, it's great with the sales, but then it changed a bit over here, but then it's okay here, and then it's not, you can't have that. People aren't going to stick around for that.
Yeah, the other thing I'd add too is that I think what can be really challenging, especially at year end and when you're bumping up against quotas, is doing the right thing by the customer. And
Mhm.
there are times where I've pushed and I've gotten the deal, and I look back and I realize just the ripple effect of that extra push, and it
Mm.
comes back to bite you, in the next deal. But it's how do you when you think about what needs to happen in your transactions, how do you make it a win-win for you
Yes,
and them?
yes, yes.
And that's another piece where it honestly, if you're a great salesperson, you can think of how to position that.
Yeah.
But that thought, and how they receive it adds up to that weight that you leave behind.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what we firmly believe in. Hey, sales, it should be a win-win, and it should be a win-win. Both of you should walk away, and maybe you walk away saying, "Yeah, I got a little less on the price than I wanted, but I feel like I've got it's a good and a fair deal." Maybe the customer walks away saying, "Paid a little more than I wanted to, but I feel like it's a fair deal," or whatever. But once everybody feels like it was fair, then why shouldn't it be enjoyable? Why shouldn't they walk away with a good feeling? And why shouldn't win-win be? Why does this have to be an adversarial setup?
I agree with you. It doesn't have to. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean, I mean, there are customers, I admit,
Oh,
that
sure.
sometimes they don't like you from the minute you state your name and your title. I always tell this story where there was a customer I was pursuing, and I got 5 words out. Hi, my name is Whitney from,
Mhm.
whatever. And and then I got cut off. And so my point is there are those times where
Yeah,
you're fighting an uphill battle. So they aren't going to be perfect. I'm not sitting here saying every sale ends in kumbaya and
yeah.
high fives. Like, some of it's blood, sweat, and tears, and you think, I don't want to do that again. Hopefully, it
Mhm.
can go differently the next time. But more often than not, taking the time to make it that win-win. I don't mean the deal has to kick out 2
Yeah,
quarters, but the time amidst the deal process, the sales process, will yield a much a much better
yeah.
experience result for everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, listen, Whitney, this has been fantastic. All of Whitney's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people about what you do.
Yes, I love getting to sales kickoff meetings and speaking to your organizations about how they can drive better results. And then I also work one-on-one with high performing salespeople and leaders to maximize their impact as well as work with their team. So I'd love to set up a strategy call if there's any interest in exploring that.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thanks again, Whitney. Thank you for watching and listening. And I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.